Next, we're going to create we're going to format the message typing area ID. We're going to give this a height of 85 pixels. So if we go back here, that's basically the bottom area here. And then we're going to give the text area inside there a height of 70 pixels and a width of 450 pixels. If we go back here, it creates a larger text area. After that, we're going to format the left area. New message left, give it a format of float left. New message right, give it a float of right, and new message send, give it a float of right, display block, height 80 pixels, width 80 pixels. So this is the send button, and there you have it. So that's the formatting we have here. Now we have to hide the invalid username message, and we have to hide the message typing area button initially so that it's not shown when the user has not signed in yet. So to do that, we're going to create a JavaScript file. And before we create a JavaScript file, we're going to first import jQuery files so that we can use the jQuery codes, jQuery programming. So to do that, I'm going to first create a new folder called JS. Inside here, we're going to create a new file for the jQuery jQuery file or jQuery code. And I'm going to import jQuery 1.12.3 version. That's going to be jQuery-1.12.3.min.js. And I'm going to link it from the main HTML file. So script source .js.jQuery-1.12.3.in.js, and we're going to create our first custom JavaScript file. Script source.js. This is for the sign in, sign out area. Sign in, sign out.js. Then we're going to create a new folder, new file. We're going to create a new file and name it as sign in out.js. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a function so we can begin coding in jQuery. And first thing we're going to do is hide the invalid username message. Hide invalid username message and message typing area. So first we're going to hide the invalid username message, which has a ID of invalid username. So it's going to hide this right here. If you refresh it, it hides that. And then we're going to hide the message area so that it's not shown until the user logs in. And that area has an ID of chat enabled. So if we go back here, it hides the chat enabled area. Next, I'm going to focus the cursor to the sign in area on the button click. So when a user clicks on this button here, it goes to the sign in area right here. In order to do that, I'm going to create a click jQuery function. And when the button with the ID of sign in button is clicked, I want to create a focus on the form element with the ID of username. So if we go back here, refresh, if I click on sign in and a chat, the cursor automatically goes up here. So that's all good. And next, we want to create the JavaScript that's going to enter the username into the database and create and allow the user to start logging in the chat box. So I'm going to type in code to execute on user sign in button click. So when a user enters a username here and signs in, it's going to enter it into the database using Ajax code. So before we do that, we're going to create a database inside PHP MyAdmin so that it can store the data, it can store the username inside the database. So to do that, I'm going to go to PHP MyAdmin, create a new database. Create it, chatbox 6. And then let's see, we're going to create a table called users, 2 columns, name the first column ID, and let it auto increment, make it a primary key, and then the second one we're going to create username, varchar, give it 30 characters for length, save. Great, so we created our first table, and now we go back to the jQuery, the JavaScript file, and on click of the user sign in button, which has the ID of user sign in, we want to run the following functions. So the variable username is going to be the value of the form element with the ID of username, and if username is not empty or not blank, then we're going to, or actually if the username is blank, we're going to show the invalid username message. And then return false. And the invalid username message box has an ID of invalid username. So if we go back to our chat box, if we make it empty, it shows the invalid username. So that's what that does. Else, if the username has something in it, then we run the Ajax function. And for the data field, we're going to create username is equal to the variable username. Type is going to be get, and URL that we're going to have the PHP code to execute in is going to be in a file called insert username.php. And upon success, we want to run a function that does the following. And this is where we're going to create the CSS. We're going to create the code that uses the CSS that we haven't used earlier, as I said, for the welcome area. We're going to, in the sign-in area, we're going to create new HTML that has the username and welcomes it. So we're going to give this span tag a class of welcome. And welcome, another span tag. This span tag is an ID of logged in user. And we're going to enter the username variable right here. So we have one span open, one span close, one span open, one span close. So if we go back to our chat box, right now it's not returning the success function because we don't have the PHP file that executes it. We don't have the insert.username PHP file, so let's create that. So we're going to create that right now. And now that we created that, it won't enter it into the database, but it will work. So the JavaScript, the front end portion of the code works. But if we go back to the browser, if we go back to the table in the database, nothing has been entered. So let's go to and actually one more thing we have to add on the JavaScript file is we have to show the message typing area once the user is logged in. So to do that, I'm going to continue on this else function, and we're going to hide the button that directs the user to the login area. We're going to hide this, and we're going to show something else. So if we go back here, there you go. The message typing area comes up. And now let's go to the insert username.php file and create the PHP to enter the data into the database. The username into the database. So we're going to connect to the database first. Localhost, root, and password is empty right now in my XAMPP server. And if connection is false or returns false, then echo unable to connect to server. And if cannot connect to the database, and we created a database of chatbox6, then echo database not selected. And here we're going to create a variable of username and retrieve from the get data type username. We want to create a SQL, and insert into the table users under the column username, the values username, and we're going to run that instruction. Query or show the error. So with this in place, if we go back to the chat box, if I create a user of Dino, sign in, go back to the table, refresh, it should have one value of Dino. So we have our first username Dino entered inside. Next, what we want to do is we want to create the jQuery and PHP file that's going to allow us to send the message into the database. So to do that, we're going to also create a new table inside our database. Create table called chat history, 4 columns, column of ID, auto increment, primary key, and username, varchar length of 30. Message, and message is going to be longer, so